Welcome to the deep dive. We're really thrilled to have you with us today because we're looking at a truly unconventional intersection.
Very unconventional.
Yeah, the intersection of extreme budget nutrition and modern spirituality.
Mm,
You know that feeling when you're trying to eat healthier, maybe cut back on carbs, but every alternative seems incredibly expensive.
right, or just completely joyless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're feeling this constant hum of anxiety from just staring at screens all day. Well, the source material we are diving into today claims those two things, your budget-friendly diet and your digital burnout, are actually deeply biologically connected.
They are. And the perspective we're exploring comes from a highly unique source. The material is by Osman, who goes by the Blind Muslim Yogi online.
He has quite the resume.
He really does. He's an advanced yoga and meditation teacher, practicing for almost 50 years and teaching for 46. He has students in over 100 countries. Yeah. And he's also a bioenergy healer specializing in telepathic energy transference. But what we're really zeroing in on today is his advocacy for a very specific, almost hyper-affordable lifestyle change.
Right, to combat what he sees happening to us on a societal level. And I have to admit, I am playing the curious skeptic today. When I first looked at these notes, I definitely raised an eyebrow.
I don't blame you.
I mean, we're talking about swapping out almost all of our comfort foods for a very specific vegetable, and then tying that to spiritual awakenings triggered by scrolling through social media. It's a massive leap.
It is a paradigm shift, for sure.
But the more I read, the more intrigued I became by the sheer practicality of his advice.
Right, and that's our mission for this deep dive, to impartially unpack Osman's claim that our modern digital habits are actually triggering involuntary biological and spiritual changes.
And why his unusual diet might be the exact fuel our bodies need.
Exactly. He's looking at the physical toll of our mental habits in a way you really rarely see discussed.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the food, because it is the foundation of his whole philosophy.
It is. He talks about a mnemonic he learned from a nutrition professor, and it's brilliant in its simplicity.
The GPS rule,
The GPS rule. He says if you want to be healthy, you need to avoid GPS.
which stands for grains, potatoes, and sugar.
Right. And he breaks down the biochemistry of why those three are so detrimental, especially right now. We all know the basics of macros, but Osman focuses on how these foods act as inflammatory barriers to bioenergetic shifts.
So grains, meaning all refined ground wheat, cake flour, breads, pastas.
And potatoes, which are incredibly high in starch.
Right. They essentially flood your system with a massive sugar hit.
Exactly. That creates a spike and a crash, leading to systemic inflammation.
But avoiding carbs and sugars is famously miserable. Let's just be honest about that.
Oh, it's terrible.
Osman even acknowledges it. He says it's extremely difficult, a total misery, and requires immense willpower. People might last a few weeks, maybe 6 months, but a lifetime.
That's tough.
And usually, the people who successfully replace all those carbs with a keto-based diet are the ones who can afford fancy, premium health foods.
The expensive nut flours, the specialty keto breads,
Yeah, it's a rich person's game a lot of the time.
which is precisely where he offers his alternative. If you're on a tight budget and need a nutrient-dense, non-starch base to replace your daily pasta or rice, Osman introduces his ultimate hero,
Cabbage.
Cabbage.
Now, I hear the economic logic, but from a purely culinary standpoint, replacing a warm bowl of pasta with wet cabbage sounds like a punishment. I was picturing just eating sad, boiled leaves.
Well, if you look at the volume to nutrient ratio, his choice makes perfect sense. Across multiple countries, cabbage is one of the cheapest cruciferous vegetables you can buy in massive volume.
That's true.
Think about something like kale, which is incredibly trendy. It can be prohibitively expensive depending on where you live.
Even cauliflower has gotten pricey.
Exactly. But with cabbage, Osman notes you can get double or even triple the quantity for the same price. It simply gives you much more bioavailable nutrition for your dollar.
It's a serious budget hack.
Yeah.
But the obvious question you have to be asking right now is, how on earth do you eat that much cabbage without losing your mind from boredom?
Right. And Osman actually provides a whole culinary masterclass on how to prepare this so it mimics the comfort foods we crave.
Because preparation is absolutely key to making this sustainable. You do not just boil it to mush.
No, Osman's method is to chop it up and only lightly steam it with some salt. The goal is to keep it crunchy.
That crunch is the secret.
Yeah.
Because then you use it exactly like you would a plate of rice or a bowl of pasta.
You build a base plate of this crunchy, lightly steamed cabbage, and then you top it.
Yeah, he talks about pouring lentil soup over it or adding your protein, whether that's chicken or fish, and layering on other vegetables.
You treat the cabbage as the delivery system for all your other flavors, just like pasta.
And to avoid flavor fatigue, he has a very specific spice mix recommendation.
You start with the salt, but then you add cinnamon powder, mustard seeds, mint, parsley, and thyme.
And this isn't just about taste.
No, these spices have their own anti-inflammatory and digestive benefits.
And crucially, turmeric powder. Which brings us to my absolute favorite detail from the source material. He insists on adding a pinch of black pepper to the turmeric.
Yes.
Now, the underlying nutritional science there is completely sound. Pairing black pepper with turmeric helps your body absorb the active compound, which is curcumin.
Right, curcumin.
But in the video, Osman has this charming slip of the tongue. He says you add the black pepper to release the cucumber in the turmeric powder.
The cucumber and the turmeric.
It's hilarious, but it's a very endearing moment that shows he's just chatting casually and sharing his authentic routine.
It is. But the mechanism he's describing, enhancing the bioavailability of curcumin, is vital for building a highly anti-inflammatory base.
Definitely. And you also have the option to make homemade sauces.
He suggests making a tomato chili sauce, similar to an Italian pasta sauce, and pouring that right over the spiced cabbage.
He doesn't just eat it like pasta, though. For variety, he leans on a green smoothie formula. He cites Dr. Brooke Goldner.
Sometimes he refers to her as Dr. Bruckner in the source.
Right. She runs a site called Goodbye Lupus. Osman follows her smoothie shred protocol, which involves blending about a pound of raw cabbage with some flax seeds, water, and fruit for flavor.
Blending a full pound of raw cabbage might sound extreme.
A little bit.
But he emphasizes that if you can't afford a huge variety of greens, just using cabbage in this blender method is perfectly acceptable.
You're getting an immense amount of raw, nutrient-dense, cruciferous volume into your system daily.
Just imagine for a second how easily you could swap this into your weekly meal prep. Instead of buying 3 boxes of pasta and a bag of rice, you buy a few massive heads of cabbage.
You save money, and you're flooding your body with phytonutrients instead of those blank inflammatory carbs.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because you might be wondering, okay, eat more cabbage, save money, be healthier, got it. But why is Osman so passionate about this specific diet right now?
Why the urgency?
Yes. Why the urgency to drop the inflammatory grains and sugars immediately. And this is where we pivot to the most unconventional part of his philosophy.
This is the core of it.
He claims we need this hyper-nutrient-dense diet because of our phones.
Right. This is where the spiritual and the biological collide in his framework. Osman makes a staggering claim. He believes that over 80 to 90% of people are currently experiencing what he calls a Kundalini awakening.
And as the resident skeptic, I have to push back here. When I read Kundalini awakening, I usually think of monks on a mountain or people at expensive wellness retreats meditating for weeks.
Not everyday people doom scrolling on TikTok.
Exactly.
Well, for those unfamiliar, Kundalini is traditionally viewed in yogic science as a dormant energy at the base of the spine. When awakened, it supposedly travels upward, fundamentally rewiring your nervous system and expanding your consciousness.
But Osman argues that you don't need to be on a mountain for this to happen anymore.
He believes spending 8 to 12 hours a day hyper-focused on a screen, whether that's TikTok, YouTube, intense reading, or even just being deeply buried in work tasks for an 8-hour shift, acts as an involuntary form of mindfulness meditation.
Hold on. Mindfulness is usually about intention and peace. Doom scrolling is notoriously anxiety-inducing. How does Osman reconcile the toxic stress of social media with a spiritual awakening?
It comes down to the mechanics of focus. In his definition, you are taking your mind away from your personal problems and your immediate ego for hours at a time.
Oh, okay.
Your nervous system doesn't necessarily differentiate between staring intently at a mandala or staring intently at a glowing screen.
It just registers the focus.
Exactly. It registers the state of sustained, single-pointed focus. According to Osman, when you do this day after day, year after year, it creates a gap in your everyday consciousness.
And that gap allows for this massive evolutionary spiritual energy, the Kundalini, to begin rising.
Yes. He says it's not usually a big, explosive bang for most people.
It's happening subtly, involuntarily. Hundreds of thousands of people are going through this without realizing what it is.
And he points out specific symptoms. If you're listening to this and you feel a deep dissatisfaction with life, or you find yourself questioning the authenticity of the religions you grew up with,
Or you're suddenly searching for a greater purpose. Osman says these are all psychological signs of a Kundalini awakening.
which brings us to the physical ramifications. What happens to a physical body when it undergoes a massive neurological or spiritual shift?
Osman notes that we're seeing huge spikes in stress, anxiety, depression, and psychosomatic disorders, alongside chronic physical ailments.
Biologically speaking, this awakening requires an immense amount of physical energy. It is essentially rewiring your nervous system.
It's draining your battery completely.
Your nervous system is basically trying to run a massive, resource-heavy software update in the background while you go about your day.
And what are most people fueling that update with?
The link of carbs.
Breads, pastas, pastries. The exact GPS foods he warned us about.
Which sounds harmless enough until you look at the historical data Osman brings up. He makes a fascinating historical observation.
Yeah, this part was really interesting.
He points out that if you look at photographs of city streets from 50 years ago, you see people who were eating plenty of refined carbs. Bakeries were everywhere.
Right.
But obesity wasn't rampant like it is today, and people generally looked slimmer and suffered fewer chronic autoimmune issues.
So what changed? Did the bread change?
The quality of the food has certainly changed, but Osman's theory is that we changed. Society is advancing at lightning speed, technologically and evolutionarily.
The forced mindfulness of our screen-heavy culture has triggered this mass awakening.
Exactly. Meaning our bodies are now burning energy differently and under immense new bioenergetic stresses.
50 years ago, someone might have worked a physically demanding job, but their nervous system wasn't processing the relentless, single-pointed digital focus we experience today.
If your brain and spirit are running a marathon because of modern digital life, you cannot fuel it with a heavy bowl of pasta.
That is the core thesis here. You have to remove the inflammatory products to survive the upgrade.
We are literally starving for high-quality nutrients to support this shift.
And when we feed the body inflammatory foods instead, it breaks down under the pressure of the Kundalini energy.
This brings us right back to the cabbage.
Full circle.
The physical demand of this modern state requires supreme nutrient density. You need foods that fight inflammation, not cause it.
You need phytonutrients, raw enzymes, and clean energy to ground the nervous system.
So how does Osman actually structure his eating to pull this off?
He's very transparent that while he eats 99% whole foods plant-based because he notices how food affects his own Kundalini energy, he isn't demanding everyone become a strict vegan.
He understands that might be too high of a barrier for people just trying to survive the day.
Right. He offers a very practical ratio for you to follow. He recommends a 70-30 or 80-20 rule.
That means making your plate 70 to 80% plant-based, like your huge pile of spiced cabbage, and 20 to 30% animal-based protein.
But he is strict about the quality. He says use real meat from a butcher, like chicken or fish. Absolutely no processed meats.
You have to keep the quality of the nutrition extremely high.
And to prove he practices what he preaches, he shares his exact daily routine, which I found fascinating because his schedule is intense.
Walking through his day provides a perfect example of fueling a high-energy, awakened lifestyle.
So around 8:30 in the morning, he has his first meal, which is that massive cabbage green smoothie we talked about earlier. He gets a pound of raw cruciferous volume right off the bat.
Setting an anti-inflammatory baseline for the day.
Then, mid-morning, he has a plate of the lightly steamed, crunchy cabbage flavored with his spice mix, usually topped with lentil soup or other vegetables.
He treats it just like pasta, eating until he is fully satiated.
Notice there's no calorie restriction here. He's eating for maximum nutrient density and satiation.
Exactly. In the evening, if he feels hungry, he has another massive plate of the spiced cabbage.
But here's the kicker. He naturally wakes up very early to create his content, usually around 2:00 a.m.
And you cannot run a highly active nervous system on MD at 2:00 a.m., especially if you're engaging in deep, focused work.
Right, so he snacks to maintain sustainable energy. But he isn't grabbing a bagel. He snacks on fruit, like apples and nectarines and raw, unsalted peanuts.
He specifically highlights peanuts because they provide healthy fats and, as he notes, about 26 grams of protein.
Let's look at the bioenergetics of that 2:00 a.m. snack. Taking in 26 grams of protein and dense, healthy fats from peanuts during the middle of the night isn't just about hunger.
It's about grounding. Kundalini energy, as he describes it, is an upward-moving, highly active force. Dense proteins and fats help ground the physical body.
Giving the nervous system the raw materials it needs to repair itself and sustain that energy without burning out the adrenal glands.
He takes maybe 3 to 5 mouthfuls of these intermittently throughout the day to keep his energy perfectly stable.
He issues a very clear warning here. You must always be eating when you're going through this energy shift.
If you neglect your diet or try to starve yourself to fit into some aesthetic standard, the Kundalini process will actually make you ill.
It commands energy. But as he points out, when you are eating cruciferous vegetables and green smoothies, there's no limit.
You can eat massive volumes of it. It won't make you gain weight. In fact, you'll likely lose weight. You only have to monitor the calorie-dense things like nuts.
It's a radically accessible way to look at health. He isn't selling a $50 supplement powder to fix your spiritual exhaustion.
He's telling you to buy a 90-cent head of cabbage.
Accessibility seems to be a huge part of who Osman is. And we mentioned earlier that he's been teaching advanced yoga and spiritual knowledge for 46 years, and he says he has never charged a single dollar for that teaching.
He even offers his 5-minute yoga and meditation program for free on his website.
His actual business is focused on his bioenergy healing practice, specifically critical care recovery and terminal illnesses.
But he recognizes that everyday people are currently overwhelmed by this societal anxiety and might be afraid or simply unable to commit to a major healing program.
So he created what he calls a 10-minute telepathic anxiety fix.
And he charges exactly $5 for it.
He explicitly says it's less than the price of a Starbucks coffee, and it's delivered telepathically while you're in the comfort of your own home.
It's his way of giving people a low-cost trial of his energy work to help them cope with the stress of this mass awakening.
And again, whether you're fully on board with telepathic healing or you remain a skeptic like me, you have to appreciate a wellness figure who isn't trying to lock you into a $5,000 retreat.
$5 or buy a cabbage. He's keeping the barrier to entry practically on the floor.
He's providing tools for the masses, not just the elite. And he bases it all on the idea that everyone is evolving right now, naturally, just by existing in this fast-paced, screen-dominated world.
He's simply offering the owner's manual for the new hardware.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and look at the whole picture Osman has painted for us, it's a wildly unique blueprint for modern survival.
On one hand, you have the digital reality. We are glued to screens, focusing intently for hours, which he argues is throwing us into an involuntary state of deep mindfulness.
Our nervous systems are registering this as meditation, triggering a massive biological and spiritual upgrade known as a Kundalini awakening.
And on the other hand, you have the physical reality. That upgrade requires premium, high-octane fuel to prevent the body from breaking down under the stress.
But most of us are trying to run that massive new software update on the cheap inflammatory hardware of grains, potatoes, and sugar.
Ditching the GPS, it's so simple to remember.
Osman is basically telling us that we don't need to be rich to fix this disconnect. We don't need expensive keto snacks or elite wellness retreats.
We just need to go to the store, buy the biggest, cheapest, cruciferous vegetable we can find, cabbage, chop it up, spice it with turmeric and a little black pepper.
To release the cucumber, of course.
Naturally, and use it to replace our pasta.
By making that one affordable swap, treating it as a base plate, and keeping our plant-to-animal ratio around 80-20, we can physically survive the mental marathon of the screen-heavy world.
It's practical, it's cheap, and it honors the incredible stress our bodies are under without asking us to completely upend our bank accounts.
It forces us to look at our modern exhaustion through a completely different lens. We spend so much time pathologizing our screen time as purely destructive, but Osman suggests it might actually be an evolutionary trigger.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, one that builds on everything we've discussed today. If Osman is right, and our intensive daily technology use is forcing a mass spiritual and biological evolution within a single generation.
What happens when the next generation is born into this digital mindfulness from day one?
Exactly. If we are currently struggling and exhausted, trying to adapt our adult nervous systems to this tech-induced Kundalini awakening, will the children who inherit this hyper-focused world need a completely different biological baseline just to survive?
Will spiced cabbage and extreme nutrient density stop being a biohack and simply become the mandatory evolutionary diet of the future?
Something to think about the next time you scroll.